It's Monday, which means it's time to look at the highs and lows of Nashville Predators hockey in this week's plus minus, including a look at how the Preds defense went from one of the worst in the NHL to one of the best this season. That's on today's Locked On Predators podcast.
You're Locked On Predators, your daily podcast on the Nashville Predators. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Thank you for making the Locked On Predators podcast your first listen of the day. Every single day, we are your free daily Nashville Predators podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. As always, want to start with a special hello to our loyal Locked On Pred heads out there, the everydayers who tune into every single show. Love you guys. We appreciate the support you give us week after week. I'm Nick Morgan. I'm a writer at Penalty Box Radio, and I have a partner in crime.
You do. I'm Ann Kimmel. I'm a writer at the Hockey News.
I also want to mention today's episode brought to you by Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNHL for $20 off your first purchase. It's Monday, it is time for Plus Minus. This is where we go through the past week or so of Nashville Predators hockey. We give pluses to things we like about the team, things trending in the right direction, and minuses to a couple of players or things that need some improvement. Anne, would you like to start us off with a plus from the past?
Always we start off with a plus, for sure. First of all, I do want to say for those watching on YouTube, this is not our Halloween episode, even though Nick looks like a totally different person. And that's all I have to say about that.
Hey, I was Mr. Clean, and we won the costume contest.
And that's what it's about. It's about being a winner.
It is about being a winner. Look, I'm sure Andrew Burnett would do the same thing if there was a costume contest at heart.
Maybe. Okay. Andrew Burnett's costume is actually not my first plus because I have no idea what his Halloween plans are. But I am going to start out with a person as my first plus. And my first plus is going to go to Juuse Saros. Juuse Saros. Now, look, this is something that we've talked about, for a couple of seasons now. Juuse Saros is a crock pot. He's not a microwave. He usually needs some time to get sort of warmed up and get brewing on the season. But I think we're seeing Juuse Saros like cooking the roast right now, y'all. He's at the end of the runway. He's taken off. We are cooking. I think Saros, I know we had a rough game against the Canucks last week, for a number of different reasons. But I really think when you look at the game Saturday, that game against Toronto was only made possible. Those 2 points were only made possible by the play of Juuse Saros, especially in that first period when Toronto just had, several high danger chances. I also want to thank the post twice in that game, his good buddy, the post. But I think we're really seeing earlier, consistent quality Juuse Saros. And that's what you need. We've talked about what this reset is going to look like and the time frame for this reset. Juuse Saros bumps up what the time frame for a youth movement looks like because he does what he did Saturday night. He keeps you in games until you can get your team going. And we saw that against Toronto. So I want to give a plus to Juuse Saros, who is just quiet and delightful and does his job like a freaking boss. So way to go, Juuse Saros. I know that I feel like we always are plussing Juuse Saros, but by dang, if you do a good job, you should get a plus every week.
It's a good plus because it also feels like Saturday was like the first Predators game of the season in which Juuse Saros kind of had to bail out the Nashville Predators, sort of like what he did last year. The Predators wins up until that point, it felt like they had controlled the game, a very like all around game. Right. This felt like the first time this season that it sort of felt like last year's Juuse Saros, where the Preds were just outworked, outplayed, and Juuse Saros helped them steal out a win. that to me, I think it's a good trademark Juuse Saros game. And I'm with you. We've kind of become accustomed to like having to eke through the first month or so of Juuse Saros trying to find his gear, and then him just turning it on as the season goes on. But good start this year so far. He's among some of the league's best goalies right now. I think top 10 in save percentage. Already has a shutout, so very strong start for Juuse Saros early, which is something you absolutely love to see. And I am giving my first plus to one Mr. Luke Evangelista.
Oh, I'm here for this.
Yeah, speaking of somebody who got off to a slow start, remember, we were a little bit worried about Luke Evangelista at the start of this season. Just didn't look like he had that same mojo that he had at the end of last year, where he was such a big part of the Preds staying in the postseason race, despite everybody on the team being hurt or traded. But over the last week, Evangelista, boy, he certainly picked things up, hasn't he? He got 2 assists against the Maple Leafs on Saturday night. One of those was the main assist on Roman Josi's overtime game-winning goal. That gives also Evangelista 5 points in his last 4 games. And
huge. Yeah.
Which is the most on the team that span, tied with his partner in crime on that second line, Mr. Tommy Novak.
Yeah. It's funny because that line of Novak, Evangelista, and Sherwood was one of my pluses too, but I'm just going to piggyback off of what you're saying. I love what we're seeing of it from Evangelista. And it's interesting because, we talked about maybe it's just, he had kind of a slower start. It was actually something that bothered him too. And it was one of those things where I think that Andrew Brunette was like, hey, dude, like, just breathe through it. It's early. You don't have to, sure, it would be great to score in the first, second, third, fourth, fifth games, every time you're on the ice, but we're all making adjustments. And I think Evangelista was maybe not feeling super patient with himself. So when he got his first point and then he got his first goal, he was like, look, I feel so much better now that I'm out there and I feel like I'm contributing on the score sheet. And he's just continued to do that. In that overtime play with Roman Josi, it may seem like, wow, he didn't really do anything. He just kind of skated and left the puck there. But it's part of what Luke Evangelista does. He's got a touch of that Tommy Novak vision. I don't know that anybody has the vision quite like Tommy. But Luke Evangelista can see things unfolding. He's got that hockey sense about him, knowing, hey, if I do this and move here, this is going to free this up for Roman Josi. So I thought Evangelista has had a really great week. He is on that top power play unit now, and you see him really involved in that. It's, he is understanding more and more as they worked on it in practice and then in the games this week. He's understanding more and more what his options are on the power play. He's understanding what's unfolding in front of him. And so I think we're definitely seeing him gain momentum as he gets more comfortable with what he's doing.
For sure. And we mentioned a Tommy Novak and let's add Kiefer Sherwin to that
Come
mix.
on.
That line as a whole, I think deserves a plus just because their chemistry has been building throughout the season. And I think so far, I'll have to check to maybe see if there's maybe a tweak or two in the first couple of games, but that line has been the one constant for the Nashville Predators this season. And you're seeing it pay off because those three have such good chemistry on the ice together and have been one of the Preds' best lines this season. It's not all sunshine and rainbows, though, for the Nashville Predators. There are some things that need some improvements. We're going to talk about that in just 1 second. First, though, I want to mention today's episode is brought to you by Game Time. It is one of the country's fastest growing ticketing apps for a big reason. And that reason is what happens when you don't use Game Time to buy your tickets. Me and my dad went to Fenway Park a few years ago. We found what we thought was a great deal on seats in the lower bowl, right up on the third baseline. They were, cheap seats. And we were like, oh, this is going to be great. Good view for not a lot of money. Well, we get there and our seats are right behind the poll. We could only see the batter's box or the mound at any given time, but couldn't see both. Kind of knocked out the enjoyment anymore. That's why I use Game Time now. The biggest thing about Game Time is they have a feature that lets you view your seat before you buy, your exact view, so you know exactly what to expect when you arrive. There's plenty of other reasons to like Game Time as well. They show you your all-in prices up front, so you know you're getting a great deal without all the hidden feats. And you can buy your tickets in just 2 taps of your phone. No more having to do all the weird scrolling through and filling out 100 different forms and having to scroll through emails at the gate to figure out where your tickets are. Just 2 taps, you get your tickets and you get them sent straight to your phone. They have plenty of great deals on tickets right up to the start of the event, even an hour or so after it starts. So it's the perfect place to find last minute seats. And they always have exclusive flash deals and sponsor deals on tickets for football, basketball, baseball, concerts, comedy, theater, and of course, hockey. And with the Game Time guarantee, you'll always get the best price. If you find tickets in the same section and row for less, Game Time will credit you 110% of the difference. So take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time. Don't get stuck behind a giant poll. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNHL for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and use code LOCKEDONNHL for $20 off. Download Game Time today. Last minute tickets, lowest price, guaranteed. All right, Ann, we are doing our Monday plus minus, recapping the highs and lows of Nashville Predators hockey over the past week. Not all good things for the Nashville Predators. And so how about giving us a minus?
All right. Since it's Monday, I'm going to go ahead and we're going to do minuses. You know, that's not the cry of my spirit, but here's what's real. One fat minus from the Nashville Predators has been slow starts. And this is something that is, I think, is starting to make Andrew Brunette lose his Jesus a little bit. It's probably not, but it's definitely something concerning to him and concerning to the team. The first couple of games of the season, you know, you did have that first period against Tampa Bay in the very first game of the season. But after that, you saw the Nashville Predators against Seattle and against Boston come out and hit the ice and ready to go. We've lost some of that as we watch the Nashville Predators. You know, I think as fans, you kind of are seeing them ramp up. And there could be a couple of different reasons for that. So there are factors involved, and we're going to talk about some of that coming up a little bit later. But the Nashville Predators are getting some slow starts to their game. And what really seems to bother Andrew Brunette is that those are happening at home games at Bridgestone Arena. And one of the things that Brunette is really harping on is this is a place where teams need to come and not want to play. And, you know, you get the fans in there and you get the vibe in there and you get the energy in there, and that helps. But the team has to come out from puck drop on and be ready to play 100%. And we saw with the Vancouver Canucks game last week, they didn't get to their game until like midway through the second, kind of into the third period. The same thing against Toronto, which Toronto is a little bit more challenging. Not that Vancouver's not a hot team right now, but it just took Nashville some time to get to their game, and that's a little bit concerning. We saw what can happen in the Vancouver game. Nashville just couldn't get out from under it, and you can't always count on you. Well, you can always count on Juuse Saros, but you shouldn't always count on Juuse Saros to cover that up. So that for me is a minus, and something Andrew Brunette is really harping on in practices and talking with the team about is it is will and execution from puck drop. Yeah. And we've got to see that, especially on this upcoming road trip.
And look, I'm not trying to make excuses for the team because this happens everywhere.
It does.
But one of the teams that I would like, or one of the reasons that I would kind of like to throw out there is just what exactly has been the start time for the games.
What is happening here, y'all?
That's another sort of sub minus of this situation. Of course, they start puck drop at 8:15 against the Vancouver Canucks. So an hour and 15 minutes later, somebody who lives in the Eastern time zone, that's not fun to have to sit through those games. And then you have a home game that's 6 o'clock
Yeah.
On a Saturday against the Toronto Maple Leafs, so an hour earlier.
Yeah.
Now you have 2 West Coast games, and then you have a Saturday afternoon game
Right.
following one of those like 9 p.m. West Coast games coming up here soon. So the start times have been all over the place. And look, again, I'm not saying this is like the cause of the Predators' struggles or that it's like a valid excuse. But I will say that, NHL players have routines. Like they like to do kind of the same schedule when they're on the road. They like to do the same thing when they're at home. They like to kind of get into the groove, ask a player to come out in the wrong order or a different order when they're doing their pregame warmups and see how much hell breaks loose. Ask a player to tape his stick in a slightly different way and see if all hell breaks loose or not. Players love their routines. So This is hard for the Nashville Predators to kind of get into that groove.
Yeah. And you say, oh, it's just an hour and 15-minute later start time for that 8:15 game. But in talking with the players, we were like, hey, what does that do to your game time preparation? Let me tell you something about Luke Evangelista. A, delightful young man. B, God likes his game day routine. Like, you want to talk about somebody who has a hard and fast game day routine. I'd like you to meet Luke Evangelista because he has it down by time. This is what time I eat my pregame meal. I nap from 1:30 to 3:30. And apparently he is really a great napper. He brags about how good a napper he is. But when you bump a start time back, it not only throws off your nap time, but then you have to eat differently.
Yeah.
And your calorie intake has to be different and your snacks are all different. And so it doesn't seem like it should be a big thing, but it is a big thing. And of course, it's a big thing that they need to work through, and it isn't an excuse, but I would agree with you. It is a factor. It is a factor.
Yeah. One more small minus for me, Anne, and that is whatever blood curse is affecting Yakov Trenin right now.
I know.
And of the, 113 players in the NHL this season who have had at least 20 or more shots, only two of those 113 players have not recorded a single point this season. One of them's Yakov Trenin, the other Baird Hayton from Arizona. But, you feel for Trenin because this isn't like, look at him, like no points. Boy, he's struggling out of the gate. He's doing a lot of things really well. He's generating some offense. He's out there on the ice for some good moments. Just hasn't been able to be on the ice when the team has scored yet.
Frustrating.
So frustrating. But it's a very small, and I phrase it the way I did because I do think Yakov Trenin is playing pretty well this year for like a guy in his kind of role. I think the points will come eventually. Remember, it took a long time for Alexander Carrier to have one last year, but I think it will come for Yakov Trenin. But yeah, a little bit of a frustrating start for him to be that much involved in the offense with 20 shots on goal. Just hasn't been able to hit one in the back of the net yet.
Yeah, and he's so close. I mean, you saw it in the Toronto game. He is getting some chances. He's so great on the penalty kill, which is another minus that we'll tackle another day. But, he's doing so many things well. You just hate to see the fact that he has not found the back of the net. When he does, there will be, much rejoicing because he's, like you said, I think he's doing so many things well.
Yeah, for sure. One other thing the Nashville Predators have done really well is on the defensive end of the ice. Definitely a plus, but just wait until you hear the stats involved in the Nashville Predators defensive turnaround. Mind-boggling to an extent. We'll talk about that in just 1 second.
First, I want to let you know this episode is brought to you by our great friends at FanDuel. You can score early this NFL season with FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. Right now, new customers get $150 in bonus bets with any winning $5 money line bet. That is $150 if your team wins. If you've been thinking about joining FanDuel, there is no better time to get in on the action. The app is so easy to use. There's a wide range of betting options, including spreads, player props, over-unders, and more. Look, if you took and put some money on Will Levis last week, you're probably in your boss's office quitting your job right now. Congratulations, and we're glad you joined FanDuel. If you want to get in on all the fun and all the action, all you need to do is visit fanduel.com/lockedon and kick off the NFL season. That's fanduel.com/lockedon. FanDuel, official partner of the NFL.
All right, and we are doing our Monday plus minus here on the Locked On Predators podcast, and it is time to highlight this Nashville Predators defense.
Let's go.
Especially 5-on-5. Remember last year, boy, the Nashville Predators defense was bad. And not just like, oh, this defense is kind of rough. Statistically, one of the worst in the entire NHL. In terms of giving up shots, only 2 teams had more. And that was the Columbus Blue Jackets and the Anaheim Ducks, a.k.a. the bottom 2 teams in the standings.
Woo!
Yeah. So, yeah, the Nashville Predators could certainly stand to improve their defense heading this year. And to their point, boy, have they done.
They did.
And listen to some of these stats. Nashville Predators this season at 5-on-5, 13.1 expected goals against, second best in the entire NHL, only behind the Dallas Stars. They've also allowed just the 5th fewest high danger chances in the NHL at 5-on-5, 6th in goals against on 5-on-5, and 9th in shots against in all situations. So the Nashville Predators, they are cooking right now. And it's funny because a lot of people looked at, Jeremy Lauzon. A lot of people question whether, somebody like, Dante Fabro and Alexander Carrier could be reliable enough on defense. Even to an extent, veterans like Ryan McDonagh and Tyson Barrie. McDonagh had his own kind of doubts about, hey, whether he, had regressed enough to make him sort of a liability. Tyson Barrie, we knew he's good offensively, but was his defensive skills kind of up to par to be what the Nashville Predators needed it to be? So far, everybody has kind of, I guess, addressed some of the question marks around him heading into the season. And all 6 defensemen right now, all 3 defensive pairs across the board, playing some really reliable hockey in their own line right now.
Yeah, and you really didn't see this coming necessarily, especially because you have the Luke Schenn injured factor. And I don't know that anybody saw that coming because at the training camp beginning of the season, we were like, this is turning into a Fabro versus Carrier, who's going to get ice time. Luke Schenn is in the lineup. Well, now Luke Schenn is on IR, not real sure when we're going to see him back. But here's what I love so much about what the defense is looking like and what Andrew Brunette has done. He has taken, and it took a little bit of tinkering in some games, but he has taken a veteran and put them with a little bit of a younger player. Now, we know Josi, Fabro, they've had some chemistry in the past and been really good, but put Carrier with McDonagh, and you have Lauzon with Tyson Barrie. And I think when you do that, what you have are you don't really have a top 6 defense or a top 4 defensemen and then like the 2 others with less ice time. You can roll these pairs out against pretty much any other line that your opponent's going to put out on the ice and know that you've got a reliable defensive pair going there. And they're contributing up and down the ice. Like, so it has been so refreshing to see where you don't feel like you have to worry about, is the defense going to give up, a couple of whoopsie goals? They just aren't doing that. And it's been really nice to see, and I think Juuse Saros is probably like, oh, hell's bells. Yes, these are my people. It's been really great to see. And of course, I am all here for shouting out Ryan Patrick McDonagh, who had a couple of rough moments in the Toronto game. I will say that he did have a couple rough moments in the Toronto game, but I just think overall, these defensive pairings, the way that they've been put together, they are working so well together.
Yeah. The one thing they do need to change is that penalty kill, because while the Preds 5-on-5 defense has been one of the best,
weird.
The penalty kill has been very, very, very bad.
Here's what I want to say about that, though. Here's what I want to say about the penalty kill, because it is not good. If you look at the numbers, it's not good. But they've also played some of the top power plays in the league. You're talking Tampa Bay. You're talking Edmonton. You're talking, who's the other one that they just played that's got a top one? Vancouver has a very good. I think they're the third or fourth best in the league. So Nashville has had to face some of the top ones, and they were doing those early penalties. We've seen some improvement on the penalties in the last couple games. Just need to continue heading in that direction. But yeah, it's hard to see the penalty kill struggle, because they were kind of pretty good last year from what I remember. In my mind, I remember the good times.
You're right. Yeah. Because that was the one plus that we had from last year's Preds season.
They had lots of practice, but yeah, I think those numbers are going to improve as they A, take less dumb penalties, and B, kind of get away from playing the top power play teams in the league. Curse you, Edmonton Oilers.
For sure. And we got time for one more plus. Would you like to bring us home with some optimism?
I really am so excited to share this plus. This past week was Community Relations Week for the Nashville Predators. And so the Nashville Predators were out checking out all sorts of different programs, opportunities, neighborhoods in the Nashville area. It was so fun to see. I want to highlight what Tommy Novak and Kiefer Sherwood experienced. I got a chance to talk to
Love
about it.
This.
And this was quality. This was like quality conversation here. Kiefer Sherwood and Tommy Novak went to the Tennessee School for the Blind and were introduced to the game of goalball. And if you don't know about goalball, it is a Paralympic sport. It is a combination, as Kiefer Sherwood says, of like soccer, dodgeball, and hockey. And there are two nets, the width of the court. All the players are blindfolded so that the visual situation is all equal. And then you have a center and two wingers. You try to score goals on the other team. Not only is it an exciting sport to watch, go check out highlights, the U.S. versus Brazil overtime Paralympics. I'm just saying, really great highlights on YouTube. But hearing Tommy Novak delightfully describe Kiefer Sherwood getting pelted in the face with a goal ball, it's really something. But they were so excited to learn this new sport. They were talking about how different it was for them to experience it, how they now are more aware of all of, these different opportunities in sports. So shout out Fat Plus to the Nashville Predators for all of the community relations work that you did last week. And shout out to Kiefer Sherwood for taking a goal ball in the face in the name of sports. And Tommy Novak, just so you know, Tommy Novak, quiet, humble guy, but is not afraid to say he's a little better.
Yeah. I saw the highlights that both you and Alex took of the goal ball situation. I was like, man, this looks fun as hell.
Oh my gosh.
Other than getting pelted in the face with the ball, the rest of it looked fun as hell.
Yeah, it is such a fun game. There's actually several universities are picking it up as an intramural sport because it is so much fun, and it's just a great game for anybody to pick up and jump in and join. So let's hear it for goalball and Kiefer Sherwood and Tommy Novak.
Exactly. Yeah. Well, Nashville Predators keep trucking along this week. Tomorrow, a game against the Vancouver Canucks.
Ooh.
This isn't a repeat from last Monday's
show. No.
This time they take on the Canucks on the road. We'll have a preview of that game, how the Preds can maybe correct some things against the Canucks, plus another look at the Western Conference road trip they have coming up. So a big week for the Preds. We'll be here to break down every second of it this week. And where can people find your work?
You can find my work online at InsideThePreds.com. You can find me on Twitter X at @NK_Mama on Ice.
You can find me at penaltyboxradio.com. Follow me on X at _NS Morgan. Also be sure to follow the podcast there at LO_Predators and on Facebook and Instagram as well at Locked On Predators. That's going to do it for us on today's show. Thanks for making us your first listen of the day. Back tomorrow with an all-new episode. We'll see you then.